bad. Okay? The good thing is you have been dealing with measurement for a while now, for many grade levels, probably since you started school. Okay? Measuring something in inches or feet or centimeters, millimeters. Okay? There's a lot of noise. I don't need it. The important thing is you were probably used to measuring maybe to the nearest inch, and then they get smaller, and they make measure to the nearest half inch, and then they get smaller, and to the nearest quarter inch. This year we're going down to the nearest eighth of an inch. Okay? There are some things you have to make sure that you understand about a ruler before you can do this measurement. No, it's not a hard skill as long as you understand how your ruler works. Okay? Every ruler is the same. They all have the centimeter side, and they all have the inch side. Okay? So what I did is I took this ruler up here on our board and I blew it up so that we can look at it a little bit closer. We're going to be focusing on the bottom half. We're not going to pay any attention to what the top half of that ruler says just yet. Okay? But measurement, whenever we're measuring to the nearest half inch, to the nearest quarter inch, or the nearest eighth of an inch, is going to go hand in hand with a fraction. Okay? You talked about fractions on a number line and all that good stuff when Ms. Orgus was working with you. So you have to apply some of that knowledge to be able to make sure that you can successfully find your eighth of an inch on your rulers. Anybody else need a ruler? Alright, and your ruler is going to be the same as mine. If we look, the first thing we're going to focus on, let me pull this down just a little bit, okay, is between my 0 marker and my 1 marker. Okay, you dealt with number lines before, right, Miss Elise? Okay, I know you did it this year with Miss Orgus. Okay, all we're doing when we look at this ruler is we're thinking about it in terms of fractions. Okay, so whenever I look at this, the first thing I'm going to notice is how many, if I count each little mark on my ruler, whether it's the longest, the medium length, or you notice that they show them in different heights. Okay? What you need to understand about different heights, okay? If I look at the 1/4 and the 3/4, they're the same height, right? Okay? Is 1/3 as a fraction, 1/4 as a fraction, then we have 3/4, right? Okay, would be that one. We all know this is our half-inch mark, right? We all can see that, understand that, right? Okay, and if I was going to write half-inch, I could write it like this, but I could also write it as an equivalent fraction with 4 as the denominator. How? 2/4. Okay? That's not new. You've been dealing with that for a while, right? Measuring to the nearest quarter inch, half inch, 3/4 full inch. Okay? So we all understand here, if my board would draw right, is my quarter inch mark. We understand I can identify a half inch mark by 1/2 or 2/4 because those are equivalent fractions, right? Okay? We all know this little mark here is my 3/4 of an inch. Okay? That's not new, right? Okay? When we look at this, now we're going to go in and we're going to count how, and you can look at your own ruler. You don't have to look up here. Okay? We're going to count every single little mark between 0 and 1. I want you to do that on your ruler now. Every mark between 0 and 1.
Whoa! She said in between 0 and 1.
Yes, you count the mark at 1. Okay, look up here. Folks, if you have a standard ruler, there is no way you have 30 marks between 0 and 1. There is no way you have 7 marks between 0 and 1. Okay? If I count this, from 0 to the first one would be 1, right? To the second one, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. So I'm going to write a little 4 under there. Maybe. Okay? 5, 6, 7, 8 would be my ½ inch mark. I'm going to make that note down there too. 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm going to make a note to myself that my 3/4 inch mark is at the 12. Okay, 13, 14, 15, 16. By the time I get to 1, I put 16 marks on my ruler. If you don't have 16 marks on your ruler by the time you get to 1, you need one of my rulers. Are you on the centimeter side or the millimeter side? Okay, we'll talk about that later. Look up here and don't refer to your own. I will teach you how to read your ruler. Okay? You don't read it any different. It just breaks it down into even smaller sections. This ruler that I have up here on the board is broken into 16ths. Okay? So, how did I know that it's broken into 16ths?
4 times 4 equals 16.
What does that have to do with anything?
4, yeah. Each quart is 1/4, and then 1/2 is 8. So you get 2 halves, and 8 plus 8 equals 16.
Okay? How else do I know I have it broken into 16ths? What did I just do? Jeffrey?
Every time you measure, like, there's 4 marks.
Okay? I counted each individual little mark on this ruler till I got to 1. So I go between 0 and 1, there's 16 marks. So how many marks are there going to be from 1 to 2?
32. 32.
So, if there's 16 marks from 0 to 1, how many marks are there going to be from 1 to 2?
16.
I'm still moving an inch, right? Okay? Whether I'm looking at it from 0 to 1 or I'm looking at it from 1 to 2, I can still count each individual one of these little marks and I'm still going to get 16. Now, those of you that shouted out 32, if I would have asked from 0 to 2, you would have been correct. You have to listen, okay? Same way when you're presented a ruler in your homework, on a test, anything. When you're presented a ruler, the first thing that you should look at, where does that ruler start? Where does it stop? Because you may be presented a ruler that starts at 1, okay? And that would affect your answer. What we're going to do today is we're going to work on being able to determine, okay? So when I look at this, I'm not going to use my shortest little mark here, like this first one, because that would be 1/16. Okay? I'm measuring to the nearest 8th. Okay? So, I'm going to be using this one, this one, this one, this one. What are you noticing? It's every other one. Okay. So if it's broken into 16ths and I'm using 8ths, which is half of 16, it should make sense to you that it's every other mark that I'm using. Okay? So when I have a ruler that's broken into 16ths, if your ruler is broken into 30 seconds, you're going to use every second one. Some of you were saying you had 30 seconds or 30 thirds, 30 thirds, whatever. But I'll work with you a little bit closer on those, or I'll just give you one of these, and then we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so when we work on measurement, we're going to be using Miss Elise and all the others that are not paying attention. Every other line, okay? But it's important that we know how to identify those lines, okay? So does everybody know the lines we're going to be referring to? Okay, so very quickly, I'm going to erase what I have up there, and then we're going to go through and we're going to label them as 1/8, 2/8. 2/8 is also equivalent to 1/4. Okay, so when I get to that 1/4 mark on my ruler, see if you can find it on your ruler. Okay, you should be registering also, knowing equivalent fractions, that 1/4 is the same as 2/8. Okay? So let me erase this and demonstrate. Okay, let me blow this up just a little bit more. You what? All right. Well, let me tell you why I'm going to use the phrase beating a dead horse. Okay, same concept, I just blew it up so you can see it easier. If you don't have it marked correct on your ruler, pay attention up here. Okay? We've already decided that we're using every other line. So I'm just going to make a little mark here to help us see exactly where we're going to be, and then we're going to go through and we're going to label those. Obviously, just because my ruler is blown up to a larger size, did it change the amount of sections that I have in my ruler?
No.
No, I still have 16. Okay? So, I know from 0 to my first eighth of a mark, that's going to be 1/8, right? Okay? My next one is going to be 2/8. If I reduce this fraction, that's 1/4. Okay? So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, which is equivalent to 1/2. Okay? What can you tell me about 6/8? Okay, so 8/8 is 1/2. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at different lengths of lines and other random things they may give you, and we have to be able to estimate this to the nearest eighth. Okay, so very quickly, if I draw this green line and it ends right here, okay, well, it's not really on 3/8, but it's not really on 4/8. What do I do? How do I know? Do I say that line is 3/8 of an inch, or do I say that it's 4/8 of an inch, or 1/2 inch? Okay? You know how you have these little lines in between? Use that as your 5 and up when you're rounding. Okay? Is it halfway or more? I'm going to round it up. Okay? So, if I'm estimating or measuring to the nearest eighth, see how this line is here? And my green is just a little bit longer than it. Okay? So it's over halfway to the next one. Therefore, I would estimate this to be 4/8 of an inch, or 1/2. Okay? If it's directly on the line, okay, think about rounding. When a number is directly on 5, does it stay the same, move up, or what? Okay? So if it's directly on the line, in between 3/8 and 4/8, or maybe it's directly on the line between 5/8 and 6/8, maybe it measures all the way to this line, I would still say it's 6/8. I would round it up. Okay? The only reason I would go backwards on that and estimate it to the smaller eighth is if it's not at least halfway to the next one. The coolest thing is when your ruler is broken into 16ths, you have that easy little divider in there that's showing you halfway between each eighth. Okay? So the biggest thing that you have to do to be successful in this lesson is you have to know how to read your ruler. Okay? They're going to ask you to measure down as far as the nearest eighth of an inch. Okay? And if you think about that in real life, it's that far. From the edge of my ruler to my fingernail. Okay? So, very, very, very small measurement. So, here's my advice. Basically, I'm just going to go ahead and give you your workbook page. You can go ahead and start. Okay? It's telling you, you have to measure to the nearest half inch, to the nearest fourth of an inch, and to the nearest eighth of an inch. So you have to give me 3 measurements. Okay? So, let's do a quick, if I was going to measure this green line that I have to the nearest half inch. Well, I'm less than 1.